for very brutal societies.
Well, I have accepted that if we were to base our societies on Darwinian principles, they would be brutal, harsh, and unpleasant. I have told you that I want not to live in a Darwinian society. I've suggested to you that it might be a good idea to learn something about Darwinism so as to know what to avoid in setting up society.
And it would be helpful to learn what are the characteristics that make successful and healthy society. And let's build on those characteristics.
I agree with that, and among those characteristics would be critical thinking, a
Yes.
respect for education, a respect for evidence,
And respect for human beings.
and a respect for human beings, very much so.
Regardless of whether they can provide for society or provide something to society.
Yes, indeed. That's the essence of the liberal philosophy which I espouse, that human beings should be respected, their health should be taken care of.
Even if they don't have a functioning brain
Yes.
that is conscious.
They should be given, their hospital care should be taken care of by the state. That's a liberal principle which I espouse. It's an un-Darwinian principle.
And see, I believe that it's not a state, because a state is an institution or an entity. It's human beings that provide care for others.
Well, okay, human beings provide care for others. None of that bears on the truth of whether evolution actually happened. And that is a matter of fact. It's like gravity. You can't get away from fact. Study the fact, learn the facts, and then make up the society that you want to live in on the basis of the facts as they are.
Yeah, and the facts that would include what makes a better society is one where there is deep respect for each human being, and a way to inculcate
deep respect for each human being.
And the way to inculcate respect for human beings is by seeing that they were created.
So you would you
by a
actually
loving
distort
creator.
the scientific fact in order to create respect for human
There's no
beings?
need to distort, because as I mentioned, science is a technique, a tactic for discovering and unlocking the keys of how this world works. And so we don't need to deny any facts, because the facts end up bearing out our beliefs. So sometimes it takes time for science to catch up with the beliefs that have made the best societies. Sometimes it takes a while for science they may stumble across something and take the wrong interpretation from it and build a philosophy on it, and then later realize, oops, that wasn't correct. So science oftentimes changes its own beliefs based on new evidence that comes forward. But oftentimes what ends up happening is, as science progresses, it backs up the belief that there's an intelligent designer.
Science proceeds by what the philosopher Karl Popper called conjectures and refutations. So, you have an idea, you have a hypothesis, and then you see if you can refute it. And a theory is, a well-substantiated theory is always one that has yet to be refuted. So the more a theory has been attempted to be refuted and has yet to come through with flying colours, the more accepted it is. And after a point, de facto, it gets called a fact. The theory that the Earth goes round the sun is only a theory. It's only a theory, but it's never been refuted, and we all know it never will be refuted. That's how science proceeds. It's conjecture and refutation. That's the state that evolution is in. I mean, it's a bit like the theory that the Earth goes around the sun. It is only a theory, but to a scientist, that can mean, in this case does mean, that it's never been refuted. And the more it goes on from decade to decade to decade and is not refuted, the more closely does it approximate to what everybody calls a fact.
Then evolutionists should have no problem with there being questioning of it and
Absolutely not.
challenging of it, and to be willing to teach the challenges to it, to be willing to talk about the evidence against it. And that's where I find the hardcore evolutionists have a bit of a problem. It's like an oak tree in a storm. Because it is so rigid, it's more likely to then fall and break, whereas those that are more open to being challenged can then bend with the facts that come forward. So that's why what many of us in the United States are arguing for Teach the controversies in the schools. Allow the information that shows the flaws in evolution to be taught. Don't blackball scientists who may not agree wholeheartedly with the hardcore version of evolution to be blackballed out of the profession. Allow people to have enough respect for people to allow them to have all the information so they can make up their own minds.
It's a difficult question, this thing about blackballing. I mean, it's a nasty idea to blackball, of course. I mean, what about somebody who's teaching geography, who believes in the flat Earth? I mean, would you blackball them?
Well, always extreme cases are used. That's not what we're facing here in the United States. What we're facing are scientists who may not agree wholeheartedly with the hardcore view of evolution, who do believe in intelligent design. They're being denied their careers.
Well,
they're being denied. So it's better to argue from the facts of what's happening rather than some hypothetical.
Okay. Let's take intelligent design. I mean, the leading intelligent design proponents in this country believe in evolution. They believe that we're cousins of chimpanzees, we're cousins of kangaroos, etc. But what they don't believe is that God is completely absent from the process. So they believe in evolution, but they believe that God, as it were, helped evolution over the difficult jumps. There are some things that they call irreducibly complex, which, and scientists dispute that they're irreducibly complex, but the point is they do believe in evolution. They do believe that we're descended from reptiles, for example. Well, it's just that they think that God helped over certain of the difficult stages.
So it would be wonderful to interview them and let them speak for themselves, present their information and their evidence.
Yes.
And to show that there are a variety of views. And that's why the hardcore evolutionists should not have a monopoly on what is allowed to be discussed or researched in science.
Would you accept, well, nobody's going to make any restriction on what you're allowed to research, of course.
Well, that's done, of course, through funding, through grants, through positions at universities. There are ways to restrict what can and can't be researched.
I mean, funding of scientific research is always a problem, and all scientists have a time when they grumble about not getting funding. I mean, you do have to, you're competing in a marketplace, and the NSF and other grant-giving bodies have to give money where peer review suggests it's going to be most useful. I mean, that is definitely a problem, of course. Would you accept that what you call teaching the controversy should be done in classes of religion or classes of history of ideas, rather than classes of science?
Teaching the controversy refers to teaching the evidence and the facts that dispute evolution. So it should be taught in the science classes because it's teaching evidence.
Yes, I mean, when I asked you about evidence, you said there are no fossil intermediates, and when I told you about fossil intermediates, you changed the subject. I mean,
no, when I don't change the subject, what I say is that if there were, if there had been evolution from slime to human beings, that there'd be a massive amount of evolution. If there was evidence of going from slime to human beings, there'd be a massive amount of evidence showing interspecies, from one macro species to another. And that's where I find the concept of evolution lacking. And so the burden really is on the evolutionists. Oftentimes it's been thrown back at us that we just need to look at the information. But let me throw it back on you all to say, look, this is what's needed to convince us. So you need to come up with a large amount of evidence to back up this claim that there's been a large progression of macroevolution throughout the years.
Yes. How are we going to make you look at it there? Because, I mean, I've told you...
Well, no, we look at it. We look at it. Again, when I go back to... it's easy to blame the other person. To blame by saying that we're ignorant. But what I'm saying to you is if there were enough evidence, it would convince even, it will convince those who are open to the information. There's such a vast number of people in the United States and elsewhere who do believe in an intelligent design, that there's a creator. If there was a vast amount of evidence, solid evidence to back up evolution, that would influence a significant number of the vast number of people who believe in intelligent design.
That sends me close to despair because the evidence is there. I mean, I keep telling you about it. No, just let me tell you some of it. There is evidence of, for example, the transition from fish coming out of the water, onto the land. It's beautiful evidence. It's elegant. I mean, they're lovely fossils. Go to Philadelphia and have a look at the wonderful fossil they've got there. I'm sure they have replicas in the Smithsonian here. Just look at that evidence. It's beautiful. The evidence for the transition between the reptilian jaw and the mammalian jaw. The reptilian jaw has several bones. The mammalian lower jaw has only one bone. And the other bones that were in the reptile have now moved into the inner ear. It's a beautiful transition.
So what is your cause in life?